The Gauteng Investment Conference took place on 3 April at the Marriott Hotel in Melrose. The inaugural event gathered policymakers, investors, business leaders, and industry experts who were keen to contribute their insights towards shaping Gauteng's economic future. 312.5 billion rand in investment pledges were received at the event, exceeding the initial goal of 300 billion rand in investment for the fiscal year. The Gauteng government also emphasized the power of public-private partnerships and said it is committed to building strong networks with the private sector globally. We spoke to key stakeholders on their insights in unlocking growth in Gauteng through private-public partnerships.
You make mention of the importance of a strong government partner, but within the rail sector, which is an important mode of transport, specifically speaking to trade, you are not the only rail operator, but often you boast numbers that far outpace other operators. What would you say you are doing right over and above other operators?
So I always say to a lot of people, even as we're diversifying our business and looking at other things like commercializing the business and everything else, is that the basics and the fundamentals have to be correct. The system has to be safe, the system has to be reliable, and the system has to be available. And it also has to be maintainable. Now that is the basics, and I always say to a lot of people, we look at everything else but forget the basics of the business itself. When I promise you that the train is going to be there in the next 10 minutes, the train should be there in the next 10 minutes. And it should be on schedule, and it should actually be, clean. It should actually be safe. People should feel at ease to be able to ride on the train itself. And a lot of people that criticize our service, they don't criticize on what happens within the service. They actually criticize on what happens after they leave the service. Their safety beyond the gates of the Gauteng, and that is something that we're looking at in the future to be able to create transport safety corridors, as I refer to them, and that is a key issue. If a young person cannot go on the system and know that they are able to ride the train anytime they want to and go to where they want to go to, that you're not going to get right. So and therefore, you also need to secure your system, secure the infrastructure itself. When you look at our system, the last major cable theft I had in early 2020. And that is about the robustness of your security deployment.
Also, just building momentum on some of the challenges you're facing as Gauteng. We know in the coming year, the concession agreement with Bombela Concession is coming to an end, and you're looking for a new partner. What is the latest on that?
So we are in the middle of the evaluations, and the evaluations are going through the process. And in the next few months, we'll be making the announcements as we should.
And lastly, just before I let you go, are there any some of plans on the horizon to build from the momentum of today's event?
Definitely. We, as the State of the Province address had articulated it, were in the market to be able to build the new Soweto line and also expand from Cosmos Junction to Lanseria, and from Lanseria all the way to Samran. That process is currently in the market, and we've put it out to be able for public comment, and we're in full flight.
So, MEC, you make mention you've not only met your target but exceeded it for this year. We know that over the next 3 years, the target is 800 billion. What is the first priority now that the system or the engine has started running? What are some of the first interruptions or objectives you are going to put in place?
I think now that we've got a clear indication that there is appetite and willingness from the private sector, we have to also implement what we have pledged here today, which is to, amongst other things, ensure that we create a conducive environment and that we streamline processes, and we also work with other spheres of government to ensure that the cost and ease of doing business is actually attended to. And we want to set up systems internally to be able to be responsive and make sure that when private sector reach out, there are no delays, because some of these pledges will not be realized if government does not play its part and if government is not responsive. So the success of these projects that have been identified by the private sector is also dependent on the reliability of government and its capacity to respond quickly and timelessly.
I want to expand further on private-public partnerships. I know that there are various models that you have outlined as well from today's conference that will target public sector involvement and the ease of doing business. Just kindly expand on that for us.
Well, firstly, we've got business is not homogeneous. As you know, business straddles across different sectors. It operates in different geographical areas, and some of business has got international character in that they are multinationals and all that. So there has to be an appreciation on the part of government to understand the needs of each business in terms of the sectors and in terms of the other areas that I have identified. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to make sure that there is consistency in how we interact with business. But there is also predictability on the part of government, especially when it relates to policy, when it relates to regulatory frameworks and other needs that the businesses require. But we also need to make sure that the partnership is not one-sided. The partnership is mutually beneficial, because business people are in business to make money, to make profit. We want to see economic growth so that we can be able to meet the demands of the people who have entrusted us with the responsibility to govern. So we all have mutual interest. We all want to see the economy growing, and that's why we have to work together. I think amongst other things, those are some of the issues, and we can expand further.
And lastly, MEC, this is the first Gauteng Investment Conference. Looking now to the next coming editions, are there any plans in place?
Yes, certainly. This is inaugural. We will be proceeding in the subsequent years because it's not just about coming together, having a discussion, and people just pledging. We want to get to a level where people come and sign deals here, where people know that if you want things to happen, if you want to achieve your objectives, you have to go to Gauteng, you have to come to the investment conference. So we have to make it meaningful. This is a good start, and we are hopeful that we'll definitely grow it in leaps and bounds in the next coming few years, and that it will also outlive us. It should not be about who is in government. You have seen international events throughout the world that have been there for years and years, and people are looking forward to them. And this is what we are building, and we are confident that those who come after us will definitely be proud of the product we would have built.
Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us. We are in the middle of the Gauteng Investment Conference, and you are also part of today's proceedings. You are part of the panel that speaks to driving competitiveness through infrastructure. It is undisputed that the role of infrastructure is pivotal to driving some of these economic ambitions and plans that we have in place. From yourself as a private sector player, what is the significance of infrastructure development?
Thank you. Honestly, infrastructure is critical. Point in case, if I can just highlight water infrastructure. I think when we talk about infrastructure as an investment opportunity in Gauteng, in Africa, and the world, we focused on some of the very obvious areas. For instance, digital infrastructure, because in urbanizing centers and cities, we obviously need access to data, and that has obviously seen a large amount of capital coming through. We talk about transport and logistics, so our ports, our harbors, our rail infrastructure is critical to ensure that goods and services are transported across the world. But what we don't really focus on is water. If you actually think about it, water is one of the biggest risks where infrastructure is concerned. So, for instance, a lot of people don't know that large amounts of water are used in data centers to cool the data centers. And so, obviously, if there was no access to water, data centers would not operate in the manner that they do. Water is critical to power generation. Water is critical to mining operations. Water is critical, obviously, to agriculture. So investing in infrastructure where water is concerned is also an area that should actually be highlighted over and above some of these sectors that I mentioned previously.
Sure. And I want to zero in, as we have mentioned, the role of infrastructure is far reaching. But we know that there are concessions and plans in place. When we look at private-public partnerships, that collaboration between government and private institutions focusing on infrastructure, what would you say are some of the challenges to some of the inroads that are being made to address this?
I think where I would start off is some of the, I would say, the positives that have actually come through as a result of public-private partnerships, concessions. I mean, you heard, I think our Minister, MEC, Maile, mentioning the Gautrain, for instance. And that has been quite a positive, I think, example of how PPPs can actually operate, where you see both government and private sector looking at risk sharing in a manner that enables private capital to flow into. So that's one example. If you look at the REIPP program, where Eskom is concerned, I mean, it was a national program, but it was underpinned by government providing guarantees to Eskom. That has actually enabled the country to have this renewable energy, subsector, which previously wasn't there. So those are some of the positives. Obviously, the negatives, I think I would highlight is in terms of just getting projects ready on time, and just making sure that they're packaged in a way that they keep to the format of triple Ps. That obviously is a bit of a struggle, but I guess it's one of those learning curves that we as a country are starting to get better at.
Partnerships with the private sector globally is crucial for economic growth and development, is a creator of jobs, a driver of innovation, and a significant contributor to national income. This is according to the MEC for Finance and Economic Development, Gauteng Maile. And that's where we wrap up this episode of Focus On from the inaugural Gauteng Investment Conference.